And welcome to the Kosher Wine Podcast, episode 17, with your hosts, Dr. Kenny Friedman and Rabbi Yisroel Bernath. How was that?
That was great. It's hard for me to tell if it's pre-recorded or not. It's so good. What a superstar. I always thought because of my baritone voice, I would be good in voiceovers, but you're a master. You should be doing commercials.
Coming soon.
Right. In a land. Right.
In a
So,
land far away. Yeah.
you look good for not having seen you in many months now. It seems like we haven't done this in so long. Both so busy.
And
And, we
we went
really
through Tishrei without seeing each other.
tired Tishrei. Yeah, I drank so much wine that I think
I had so much wine that I ended up, having some major issues as a result.
we'll have to edit that out afterwards. In fact, I'm drinking very unlike me for the podcast, but it is only 4 o'clock here. I'm drinking an espresso. It's fantastic, but I would love a glass of wine, but still got to work today. Um,
So
so
how was your
first of
Yom Tov?
all, yeah, how was it?
What did you
It
drink?
was
Like
great.
I
You know what I do? I take, first of all, I have on my counter, um, at the end of, let's say after Shabbos every week, I always have all my bottles. And because I try to be good about my inventory in my cellar and I use Cellar Tracker, I leave them there. The main reason that I used to do it is I leave them there until I scan them out and they go into recycling Monday. It's like a perfect system, except it takes a little bit of actual work of me doing it. And
exactly.
then, like X number of years ago, when I really started writing notes and writing even more at length about wine, a lot of times I'll leave the even more interesting bottles that I want to write about on my counter. After Yontif, I think my wife was ready to. There are so many bottles sitting on my counter. And, people also, what happens is that we invite guests over and people are like, well, you had some Shabbos. There's like 30 bottles sitting on my counter right now. But it's, I've whittled it down now to a few. And I'm glad
I,
I did that. And you know why? Because I just pulled four of particular interest that I had, I guess over Sukkot, maybe even more recently, that I'm gonna, touch on today.
I love
But yeah, Yontif
I
was
can I
great.
can relate. I can really relate. My wife she thinks that I have an issue parting with the bottles. Like she's like, can you just like you had the wine, it was wonderful. Can you now put it in recycling? And I told her it's nothing to do with that. But if I put this bottle in recycling, A, then I'm not going to be able to track it. And B, then when I want to write something on it, I'm not going to have the bottle in front of me. Or for example, like for this podcast. I don't know about you, but the number one question I get is, so what are you drinking?
Always, yeah, always. And I guess if people care that much, they'll come look at my counter.
Right. I,
Because
I I actually thought we should name the podcast at one point. So what are you drinking?
right. It's pretty good, and we do a lot of that. But of course, we touch on other things, and we talk to great personalities also. So I think
Absolutely.
too narrow an idea.
If
But yeah, that
if
is
you are listening and you have a great personality that you want us to talk to, we are interested.
that's a lot of we have a lot of personality already here, I think. But yes, that's true. But that's the title, I suppose, of this episode is what are you drinking? What have we been drinking? There were a couple other things that I just on my mind today, if you wanted to discuss that first,
Sure.
if you don't mind, I would say.
Sure.
Because I kind of like the idea of like the news of the wine world also, and not even just the kosher wine world, because I think the international wine world, it does affect us. It's somewhat, it seems to me there's more of like a trickle down effect. It may take X number of years, like all of our things. If there's a food fad of some kind, we'll see it in 5, 10 years,
Hmm.
and the same thing happens with wine, really. I think we follow behind that to some degree. It affects the kosher world X number of years later, but you for sure see that the trends that occur in the non-kosher world or that happen the same almost in the kosher world, even though there's kind of a built-in bubble in a lot of ways in the kosher world. Number one, like wine will always be necessary, it's always going to be necessary. Even in times where, prohibition and whatever, we found a way, right?
We will find a way, always.
So this news I read, and a friend, Ellie Feldman, who's a brilliant wine guy himself and with quite a cellar, probably shouldn't tell people that. He might not want people to know that. He sent this article this morning, and it's the title is "Wine Sales Are Falling: A Momentary Blip or a Structural Problem." And some of the main points in it that I took out of it are that the wine that's falling, wine sales have fallen, but still red wine is taking the biggest hit, like a real hit in the last few years, which I found very interesting, especially considering, like I said, our world where I talk to person after person like you do, and I'm always begging these people like try more white wine, try more sparkling wines. I don't feel like red wines are suffering at all in the kosher world, but the conversely, and I thought which was more interesting, is that the trends are showing that the increases, it hasn't been lower, it's actually increased, is that, and not just as a percentage, I mean, it actually sold more white wine, sparkling wines, and that includes even like the cheaper made ones like Prosecco. Rosé still is showing increases, which I think people are going to be surprised to hear. And then the two really interesting ones, and I was talking to someone about this recently. I'm wondering how this is going to affect our world also. Low alcohol wine and no alcohol wines, which
Mm.
no alcohol wines don't even make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I like the taste of wine, but as my father, Oliver Shalom, would always say, he's like, you wouldn't be drinking it if there were no alcohol in it. And he was right. It's a question. I probably would not choose it if it had nothing, if it had no alcohol, period. I like wine, but I may choose something else. What about you?
I mean, we have no alcohol wine. It's called the Kedem Concord Special, right?
Is that have no alcohol? Is there a one with no
It's
alcohol?
grape juice.
Oh, grape juice. Can I don't know these words that you speak. Yes, grape juice. Right. We do
The
have that.
Concord grape.
The point of that is, though, the no alcohol wines is that it tastes like a dry red wine or dry white wine or whatever. It just has no alcohol in it. Is that something you'd be interested in?
No.
Right. Why?
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 Like a waste.
What a waste. It's the same as like I also that said, I don't understand why people spit wine out, even at vast tastings, which is why I'm a fun guy to have at wine tastings. When I'm running them, I don't do that. I should
Said
put that out there.
said
But when
no
I
Jew ever spitting out wine.
yeah, I'm saying when I go to, KFWE, one of these large wine tastings, or I went to Somalia in Israel, like I taste the wines. I'm not getting hammered at them, but I taste the wines. What's like meaning taste them, I actually drink them also. I mean, I don't if I don't like it, I'll spill it out. I take a small sip and I drink it. I don't maybe it's me, but I don't get the exact same amount of
It's because you don't have a French accent like Gabe Geller. If you had a French accent, you could spit out wines.
the guy's from Teaneck. I don't know about that French accent anyway. No one's ever really checked into his past. But that's true. I think you're right. But I thought that was an interesting thing, and Gabe Geller was one I was talking to about that recently about the no alcohol wines, and I think we're going to start seeing some of those.
Yeah, I hope so.
I lost your video, by the way.
You lost my video. Oh, it
I don't know
happens.
if that matters to the viewers. Anyway, I think we're going to see some. We definitely the low alcohol wine thing makes a lot of sense to me. People ask me for them all the time, and there are a couple that have I think Aragonuz makes one, I think have made one. But in any case, there are a couple of those that float around, year to year, and I think they're popular because people ask me about them all the time. And I'm not talking sulfites, I'm talking just alcohol. The sulfites is a different thing. We're not going to get into that. But low alcohol wines make sense, but it's just kind of like the trend to lighter and cleaner is the point. White wines, Prosecco's, bubblies, even champagne, rosé, which I think a lot of people in the kosher world think that's in major decline. And it's because there was a massive glut of it a few years ago. And
I like rosé. What do you have against rosé?
I have nothing against rosé. Don't accuse me of being anti-rosé. I happen
I
to
like
not really
rosé.
love rosé. I like rosé. I like it. I like it. There's almost every circumstance where there's an opportunity to drink rosé. I'd rather drink a white wine. I just think there's more character to it, and
Yeah.
there's really the things that I look for in wine are more apparent and more prevalent in white wine than in rosé. And I think rosé is like a great poolside drink, which is just the point, which is like, why should I be paying $60 for a rosé? And I know they're going to be like rosé experts listening to this and that type of thing, and like I'm an idiot. I hear all that, and rosé can be made like that, but the vast majority of rosé is made in a cheap way, and it should be made for that kind of purpose of like the right poolside, drink it nice and cold, it's refreshing, great. That should be $10, not 50.
I disagree with you. There are some really, really fine rosés, like really fine rosés and fantastic rosés. I mean, I understand if you're just drinking cheap rosés, then yeah, sure. But there are some really amazing rosés. Actually, one of them that I pulled off of my counter before that I'll talk about. But I want to go back to the clean drinking. I think it's a big trend, and I what was sent to you, I think that is correct. These wines that are like really clean wines. The kosher market is a little behind on that, and just like these no added sulfite wines. People always ask me, do you know of any no added sulfite wines? And there are a few that have come on the market, but nothing incredible. And in the non-kosher market, there apparently, I don't know, I've never had it, but there are apparently some amazing, like really clean, no sulfite organic wines that are actually good.
I think I agree with everything you're saying there, except for the rosé thing. But I agree with all the. I think it's also that trend towards natural wines and like all that kind of weird stuff. It's the same. That's part of it. I think people want these more natural type things. I think a lot of people misunderstand what sulfites are for wine and in wine, and I'm sure you get it also. People are like, how do I find sulfite-free wine? I mean, there is no sulfite-free
It's
wine. Every wine
impossible.
has sulfites.
It's
It's part of
impossible.
fermentation. That's what
Yeah.
happens in fermentation. But there is no added sulfites because, of course, winemakers use sulfites for a variety of reasons. And the reality is that most of those reasons are good reasons, and most of those make wine better. But if someone's particularly sensitive to it, of course. But anyway, I think that trend for sure we're going to see more of that stuff. Like, because you and I both, trends are always the things that people are going to ask you or I is a notice of the types of trends that are going to be coming. You get a lot of the same questions I do, and that's like a signal to me that that's something that wine sellers are probably should be aware of because that's what people are looking for. I just to tie that sparkling and white wine thing up, as I've said before on in different times, that I think Israel should really continue to focus on white and even sparkling wine. I think they could really make some unique stuff, and I think that the trends are showing that's what people are going to want anyway. So I think that may be a good method for them. All these Israeli wineries just making, Bordeaux varieties. Turn your thing over. Let's start doing wines and sparklings.
I I
Of
have
course,
I have
I'm
to
not
say,
running a business, so who am I
ever
to say it?
yeah, ever since we've been hanging out, I've become more of a Blanc de Blanc guy. I'm realizing it more. I don't know why. I just grab them and they catch
Love
my
it.
eye and they're good.
They're great. They're
Yeah, they're
great.
great.
They scratch that itch. It's
Hmm.
like I always want them. So what do you have on your desk there? What have you been drinking? What are you drinking now?
What am I drinking? So I just pulled off. So instead of I had a bunch of empty bottles, but I pulled a few that are open that are like just off. Like what am I drinking? Like what I had this Shabbat or the Shabbos. So I love this one here. Um, this is. Do you know this one?
Yes.
I love this bottle.
Is that the 2015?
2016.
Okay, 2016.
Right now, I think the 2016 is drinking better than the 2015. So this is the Château Alvignes Cahors. What's amazing is somebody asked, I get the craziest questions. I'm sure you do as well. But somebody asked me, do you know of a wine that tastes like the church? his wife, I guess, is converted, and she keeps on asking him for like, like she wants,
What
and
does that mean?
I
What does
don't
that
know
mean?
what
Like
it
when they do
means.
when they give you wine in a wafer or something like
I
that? I don't
guess
even know what that
so.
means.
I don't even know what it means, but I'm assuming that a wine that tastes like non-kosher wine. That was what I figured.
Okay.
I could assume this Malbec is
Uh,
like it has this really unique taste that I haven't had. I mean, obviously it's French, but it has like this like spicy, plummy, cherry, like velvety, minerally. I know I'm just saying words, but there's something about it. There's something about it that's different than any other Malbec I've had, and I keep on reaching for it. It is a J Commerce, and he brings it in, and I just like right after Yom Tif, I'd finished my stock, and I ordered two more cases of this. I just love it. I keep on grabbing it, and right now it's 2016. It's just drinking really well.
that's so interesting. I haven't tasted that in a long time, honestly. It's the 15. I don't even think I knew there was a 16. And I see that on the website there. And I always think to revisit that because there's not a ton of good Malbec. So
I don't.
um,
I can think on one hand how many good Malbecs there are.
well, there's a new one from Essa, from our friend Josh Rinderman, which I
That is
like
a
very
that
much.
is one of the that is a really good Malbec.
And I think probably they would be interesting to taste side by side because I think very different style from the one in your hand.
Well, I mean, Cahors is the
Yeah,
birthplace of Malbec.
right,
That's what's that's what's unique. For
right,
us in the kosher world, we don't have that. And
right.
if you want to have a Malbec that is from the place that Malbec was born, I mean, that's the Cahors, and I don't know
Right.
of another one.
Well, though nowadays Argentina is like known for Malbec. I mean, that is their grape, which I think it would be kind of an interesting move for Israel to try to come up with like their international grape. I
Hmm.
always like I understand Israel is a very young, again, as we've spoken about, a young and very old winemaking region. But from the purposes of like what's out there today, it's a very young winemaking region. They're kind of feeling their way around. But like to me, it's like less cab and give me something unique. What makes Israeli wine unique, and that's where you I think get you put your name on the map in that
Yeah.
way.
And
So I love the wineries that are trying to do that. But
so
that was an interesting pool.
yeah,
Uh,
well, I made a really spicy cholent this week, and this Malbec, it paired. I I know you're gonna laugh at me, but it paired perfectly with a spicy cholent.
no, I think that makes so much sense to me. I don't eat cholent. That's sacrilegious, I know, but I'm the most like
Okay,
I'm,
no
I
judgment.
rarely eat it, I should say. I'm so like I'm a I have like a Ashkenazic outside and a Sephardic inside. Like I love all the Mediterranean stuff and Sephardic foods, and like you don't generally catch me eating a piece of kugel or cholent. That said, I do like it sometimes. And if you're gonna do cholent, then you do it spicy. What's your technique with cholent? Do you have any interesting?
Oh yeah, I actually have a my cholent recipe is pretty famous. It's on Vice's website.
Really?
Yeah, I years ago, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I did a show with Matty Matheson. Today he's really, really famous. He wasn't as famous at the time, and I did this show on kosher food in Montreal for the Vice. It was called Dead Set on Life, and
Not only do I
by
remember it,
millions and millions. It was the first thing that I ever like. It was the first very famous thing that I did,
right?
and um and in the show we did a number of things about kosher, but one of the things we did is we made cholent. And so Vice asked me for my cholent recipe, and they told me that it's been viewed like millions of times, this cholent recipe.
That's amazing. And how are the royalties on that?
And yeah, right,
I
that's
don't
what I was
know.
thinking.
Not only do I remember that, I loved that. And I had met you as we spoke about that time on Pesach that time. And I think that was the next thing I saw from you. Like, and it probably wasn't that long after that. And I'm like, that was the coolest thing. I thought that was such a fun episode. And we could link it in our notes if we
Yeah,
remember to do that. Because I would love a rewatch of that. It was fun. It was great. It was like really well done, and I think it was a big Kiddush Hashem.
I
So
think it was very actually people don't know how difficult it was for me dealing with, I mean, at the time, Vice was like it. And it was, I said I'd be very happy to do the show with them, but I wanted everything to be really kosher, not kosher style.
right.
And they were like, what? Like they had no idea.
So how did you do that? Would you worked in your kitchen or something, or in
No,
shul?
no, I'm saying we went to a few kosher restaurants, a few
Uh,
like kosher establishments in Montreal, and then we did some stuff in my kitchen. But they had this whole idea, like a very different idea of like looking. I said, if we're gonna do kosher, I want to really do kosher. And to me, it was the best 22 minutes that, I mean, for a mass market that kosher could have gotten. And the fact that such a mainstream media source at the time wanted to do something that was really authentically kosher. I mean, the whole thing was incredible. Even I mean, the production crew was huge, and they were all shocked. They had never seen anything like it before. I mean, just going into the Jewish community and dealing with that, um, and maybe we should link it. It's I mean,
yeah, let's link it for sure. Yeah.
to this day, I get emails from it. People are still watching it.
I have a memory of you guys maybe riding a tandem bike. Is that
We did. Guilty as charged. We ended up riding a tandem bike because we had these really amazing. There's an incredible bakery in Montreal called Chesky's Bakery. So we had these amazing like milchik treats,
right?
and then he wanted to go have a smoked meat sandwich, and we had to wait an hour because I wasn't going to do it without waiting an hour. And
Right.
so we just like saw some tandem bike company that were like, "Hey, let's just ride a tandem bike," and that's how it happened.
That's great. I gotta rewatch that. Um, so I pulled out four bottles here. I'm gonna place two of them together because I kind of was going for the same thing with these. We had a lot of guests over all the Chagim, right? So I always I always have kind of a problem of if I'm facing that many meals with that many guests, I go down to my cellar and I'm not like, I'm not, especially when it's like a third or fourth or fifth bottle of the meal, I'm not interested in popping a $50 bottle or whatever. I'm not
Mhm.
I'm not living off of Vice royalties like you. So for me, I have to look for some affordability. So I went to one of our local places, Kosher Bite, which is a classic of Baltimore. And I like looking there and I like arguing with anyone who's ever been there knows Oleg. And like I like arguing with Oleg. So but I was looking for, and also for them to be mavushal, but I was looking for two or more affordable red white wines that were mavushal also. And I came up with these two, which I like both of them very much. And they're both to the point that since then already I've suggested them to either two or three people for bar mitzvah weekends, whatever, because they're really affordable, they're available locally, and they're really solid. This one, this Château de Parsac, you can see
Oh
there
yeah, it's good.
is Montagne Saint-Émilion. I know I'm butchering the French. I don't want to hear about it, Geller or any of you other French people. It's really solid wine. I mean, it's certainly a little bit more in the drink now fruity style of like a Bordeaux and it's Merlot, very approachable, but it's such good value to me. And like I think I paid 20 or 20 low 20s maybe for it. I really, really enjoyed that. And the other one, which is even cheaper, another $10 cheaper, is the Jaumard
Oh,
22,
oh well, I haven't
which
had that.
which I think I paid 16 or 18 bucks for it. And a little more simple than the Parsac, but that Parsac, I would honestly like stack that up against a lot of bottles that we're paying a lot more money for. And it's Mavushal, which it goes into that same equation of perhaps it makes it more approachable now, and perhaps it doesn't have the same ageability to it. That's controversial, but if
I
so, they're
think
perfect
a
bottles to
lot
go
of those,
out and pop now.
a lot of those Bordeaux are Mavushal.
Those the less expensive ones for sure.
Yeah, yeah, like a lot of those, they go to these non-kosher wineries, do kosher runs, and they end up being Mavushal.
So let me show something. Actually, I just noticed. So the Jaumard, well, just says Bordeaux on the bottom,
Yeah.
which means it's much less of a well, and the other one is Montagne Saint-Émilion. So meaning from a smaller area, grapes are from and have more restrictions on them and that type of thing. So obviously it's going to be a little more expensive and probably better, but these are both like very good quality, I would say. Oh wait, I don't know if I put this in the right. I see the nah, that can't be. I was gonna say I think I saw the Rothschild symbol on the Parsac, but I don't see the name on there. Anyway, that doesn't matter. What else have you been drinking?
So I'm really happy that we had this debate about the rosé because I took a rosé right off my table right here. And I love this rosé. Like love this rosé. I would say it's up top three rosés I've ever had in my life. How about that?
That's up there. I'm
So
curious what it is.
this is, have you had it before?
You know, of course I know the winery. I've never had that though. No.
It is so good. So this is the Château Signac Chusclan. And again, I'm gonna butcher the French. I apologize. It's from
You,
Rhone. It's a
you live
Rhone.
in Montreal. You should be good at this.
I'm an American in Montreal. I don't count for knowing French. I don't know any French. But this Signac
Yeah.
um, is unbelievable. I love it. It's just it's not a I understand people that have these cheapy Bordeaux, these cheapy rosés, and they're like, I can't handle a rosé. But in my opinion, a rosé was supposed to be a red wine, and
Yeah.
it stopped being red at some point and became a rosé. And it's just like a red wine, just lighter and fruitier and funner. And it's a Rhone, and it's great.
Right, I was going to ask you because that looks pretty dark in color.
Yeah.
Was that Grenache maybe? That would be
I'll
my
check.
guess.
Yeah, it's a Grenache.
Raw
It's
Grenache.
a Grenache Syrah. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
right on the money. 80% Grenache, 20% Syrah.
I think that's what the red wine is. I mean, I remember that. And I like the red Signac. Very solid wine.
It's really yum and very fruity, and it has like this very citrusy ness to it, which I haven't had in other rosés.
So I'm curious, does it mention how it's because part of it for me, when I say it should be inexpensive and whatever, is the method of how it's made. So,
So
a
it
lot
says
of
here,
does it
I'm
say
going to read it right off the
maceration?
bottle.
Yeah.
Elaborated by direct pressing of the grapes, it
Okay.
presents an airy color followed by a beautiful aromatic framework of elderberry and citrus. Yes, I agree.
Okay, but it's made by meaning some of these
It's a
some
Rhone. I'm
of
sure it's
the
made. It was supposed to be a red wine, and they just stopped the fermentation process.
or they right. It's essentially what you mean is that they basically they pull the one of the methods is that they pull the grape skins
Hmm.
out. So that's where, as we discussed, and some people probably know the color of the wine comes from is from primarily from the grape skins, and then they pull those skins out pretty early. That's skin macerated rosé,
Right.
right? Which is one way to do it. There's also a blending method, which is I think frowned upon in some places where they would
It's the
blend.
cheap way to do it. Just say
Right,
it.
blending red and white. It makes pink. I mean, like
Yes.
anyone who a 5-year-old knows from drawing.
But I've done that at tastings. I do that sometimes at tasting just for fun, just to like show blending and blending technique. So you can, but that as a winemaker, that's the cheap way to do it. Come on.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Like, there's the I'm gonna also butcher this, the Sanier method of like where they bleed the wine. So to me, what you're doing there is getting kind of you're double dipping a little bit because if a winemaker wants to make his wine a little more get a little more extraction and get a deeper type of wine, he'll bleed off from that or the initial press and make it a more concentrated red wine.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that wine that you bleed off? You put it in a bottle and you sell it. So to me, I'm like, okay, that's fine and that's nice, but like that's not. It doesn't take. It's not the same. amount of work and toil that goes into a red wine to make that wine, or most of these wines. That's my point. I'm like, I don't know. I've always kind of like taken issue with that. And again, and part of that is because you're not going to have the complexities of red wine because of the methods that are made. But again, I know there can be complexity in rosé. I know that it can be obviously very enjoyable. And you know what? People should drink what they want. That's the main thing. I'm with so many people that like I only like rosé. Drink rosé. Great. Great.
Okay.
More white wine for me.
More, what are you talking? More, come on, no more bubbly. What do you,
But that's right. But that's an interesting. I honestly haven't even seen that. Is that 23? That's
22,
I haven't
22.
even I never even saw it.
It's fantastic. I mean, I would say that it's a drink now, but it's right now just fantastic.
It's interesting. I honestly, and of course 22 was because it was Shemitah. A lot of those rosés came to market that you probably wouldn't have seen otherwise because they were trying to replace the Israeli ones that didn't make it to market.
Correct.
I have this German Riesling, this Gehring,
I
and
heard about it. What is it like?
this was an interesting one for me because I think this is the third bottle I've opened, and the first two I loved. I thought they were right up my alley. This one it was fizzy. And it was no good. Which is why, by the way, you'll see anyone that's watching, there's like I still drink two-thirds of it anyway, but it was
Secondary
all
fermentation.
it was undergoing some fermentation of the bottle. This Riesling is it's called the Roter Hang Riesling. Roter Hang is and I'm probably mispronouncing that also. We should have a language expert come on. Roter Hang Riesling. Roter Hang is a region in Germany known for Riesling, and this Riesling is not bone dry. It's a little bit off, or even a little semi. It's closer. There's definitely some residual sugar there, but it has really nice like tropical fruit. It's a unique Riesling that I think than people are used to, especially people that haven't had a German Riesling. And it's by the way, notice it's a twist off,
Yeah.
which great. Why not? And it's here's a wine though where it could be a questionable thing. The screw tops always make a lot of sense to me on wines that are absolutely drink now, but this isn't a wine that's necessarily a drink now. These Rieslings can put some age on them, and it's an interesting thing when it's a screw cap, which doesn't allow any exchange of air between the cork. There is no cork, so it doesn't allow a little oxygen in or a little of the inside of the wine out. So it's curious the decision to put a screw top on this, unless I guess either the winemaker thinks it's absolutely drink now, or they don't think that that's a problem. I don't know. It's just I found that curious.
Or it's hard for them to get corks in Germany. Who knows?
Well, maybe, but I feel like there's probably. By the way, there's another thing on this cheap. 20, maybe a little more than 20 I paid. I think that Andrew Breskinen brings that in, the liquid kosher guy. I have to check that. But
We should have him on one
worthwhile.
time. He's a good guy.
Worth, yeah, worthwhile, and he's a sommelier. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he imports some interesting wines. Um, and but it's definitely worth seeking out. I really like them. I only have one left at this point. I think I'm gonna lay it down and see what happens to it.
Mm.
You have another wine?
I do have another wine. This is one that again I just had it right here. That's why but I also love this wine. And I think he's also a great guy. And we haven't spoken about him very much. And we should bring him on our podcast as well. Have you had this one?
I can't see it because it's like blurry. I recognize it, I still can't see it.
This is the Guy Aisho
Ah,
Grenache.
sure. I love him. He's a great guy, and
We should have him on the podcast.
I thought about it when we were speaking today that maybe I would either I was thinking honestly I was thinking Alex Haruni from Dalton because
Hmm.
Kaya Shell is the winemaker for Dalton, but he also that's his own label, yeah.
He has his own label.
Yeah.
and I really like it. I usually buy it. This is the 2020 actually, the 2020 Grenache. I like Grenache. I mean, I know that I'm sorry, I'm not a Jew that just loves Cabernet, but I like generally Grenache, especially California Grenache, Israeli Grenache, and this one is unique. It's a varietal, and I bought a case of it. I think I have two bottles left, and I often find myself drinking it, and it's not so expensive, and it's really yum.
Where did you, I mean, I don't, why haven't I tasted that bottle?
It's a great bottle, and right now, as you know, it's a 2020, so Israeli 2020s are just like right in their peak, and so I opened up, I would say probably five or six of these over Yom Tov because they're just perfect right now.
I'm pulling it open right now. I'm reading Montefiore's note on it.
What did he say?
He wrote about this and he made another one. But anyway, he said two super expressions by winemaker Guy Shell. Both labels are highly symbolic with personal meanings. Both are minimum intervention wines made in tiny, minuscule quantities. And the one is Roussan in the sea, and this one is Grenache in the morning, Sharav, Khamsin. Had something of the haunting Grenache perfume. That's what he wrote. And winemaker at play, as opposed to when he puts on the commercial hat of his daytime job at Dalton.
I would say it definitely tastes like it's a micro, uh, you
Can
know,
I, can I tell you something ridiculous? I see commented underneath that I was lucky enough to get a hold of the bottle of Grenache, and I thought it was very nice. So I know that just shows that it's why I write everything down. I honestly don't remember tasting that,
well, I
but I did.
definitely had it when it first came out.
Yeah, I must have
That's
also.
that's when I bought it, and I could say it's so much better now. Like not even comparable to what it was 2 years ago. It's just perfect right now.
You something to note is that I thought that label was very cool.
It is very cool. I'll just show it again because it is really, really cool. Yeah. I don't know the story behind it, but
Yeah, it's interesting here. You said it has a lot of symbolism
look
behind
at
it.
that. Look at that.
What it
It's
is.
a really cool label.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, well,
I appreciate that.
the last one that I pulled, and I know you have to go, is, and I still have been meaning to write this up, but you can see
Mm.
this is a Vino Verde Alvarinho, which is an interesting wine in an interesting region, and it's called the Solar das Bouças. Is that good? Is that right? Does
I
that
don't
make it?
know. You know what's amazing about wine is you literally can live different cultures and different languages and different areas of the world just within a bottle. And so here we have now tried three different languages
Right.
terribly today.
Terribly, terribly. Yeah, and you're tasting the soil of those places. So Vino Verde, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, a kosher Vino Verde in some time. Um, and Vino Verde, I think, is known for being very, drink young, and what's known characteristic for it is that it's usually a little bit effervescent. It's supposed to be, to the point that I think traditionally it was made because, and it's still fermented in the bottle, so there's a little bit of bubbliness. And I think to mimic that, these places commercially just started putting a little bit of CO2 into the bottle to do that.
Hmm.
That's not what this wine is. This is like a very serious wine. It's 100% as they call it Alvarinho, or it's Albarino in Spain. That's what it's called. And this has like some. It's a very interesting wine. I really, which is why it's been sitting on my counter for a month, because I've been really meaning to write it up. This wine's imported by kind of a new player, Noble Wines, who are an interesting story. But I guess you can wait to read that till I write it up. I know my friend Josh London wrote them up, so that can be found now. But in any case, this is from Portugal. In Spain, it's known as Albarino. In Portugal, Alvarino. Again, probably mispronouncing to some degree, but there's
Our
body to
fourth
this
country
wine.
today.
There's body to this wine. There's tropical notes, and it's an interesting wine, and it's hard to really. I was trying to think in my head because it didn't taste like other. there's been kosher Albarinos before. There was California. We had Spanish Albarinos, which have been very good. This is something different about this one. And I thought it
Wow.
was, which is why I would eventually write it up and highlight it. And I hope to see, I've seen actually that we're going to be getting some more wines from Portugal, which is interesting, and
I wish we
including
would get
some.
we can get some more Portos.
We will be. They are coming. They are coming. What I want to see is because we've seen these, and I'm forgetting my W set stuff, but we've seen the really young
Hmm.
ports on the market. But I'd like to see some like what it takes is someone investing in it and hoping that they're going to make back their investment, which is probably a big risk. But I would
There
love to see
was one. We had one.
an old port style.
Yeah, an old port style, and I think it was in '04 we had it, if I remember correctly.
Could be. It happens to be not to be my favorite style port, but I still kind of wrap my head around it, I guess. But anyway, this is a welcome development to our expanding kosher wine world.
Yeah, and those Portuguese wines are some of them are really amazing.
Just, I thought that this is a great example when you would taste something like this next to a California or Spanish Albarino to see how different they are.
Yeah.
Before we go, I don't know, did you have another one you wanted to do?
I didn't. I just took three off. Yeah, off the shelf. I love this. By the way, I love this idea of like, what are you drinking?
I could do this every day because I have another 40 wines to go through.
Let's do it again. I no, really, I think it's so much fun because everyone always asks the question, and there's no rhyme or reason to what we have. It's just what we're actually drinking.
Right. Right. Agreed. Am I going to see you at any of the upcoming wine shows?
I like to go. Yeah. So does
What
that
we
mean that
have to
you're going to all
do,
the upcoming wine shows?
what we have to do, by the way, like some of the other players in the game, we have to get our kosher wine podcast discount code.
Hello.
No, I'm saying not for, I'm going to tell them, like, we will, I don't mind throwing that out there because it'll be good to see our reach.
Absolutely. If you're going, you need to wait until we get our codes and use our codes.
Not that we will get anything out of it, but it's just to show the power of our reach. The first one coming up is not that far from now. It's about 6 weeks away, and
Hmm.
that is the Miami kosher food and wine experience. This one's a different one than the other ones, and it happens to be this year. It's the only one open to the public. KFW Miami. Now, the KFW Miami is not run by Royal Wine because this is a Royal Wine showcase.
Right. It's a fundraiser for Hadassah Wezo, right?
Wizo, correct,
Yeah.
and which is of course a great organization. It's a fun event. I don't like telling people I come in for those kind of things. I put on a fake mustache and roam around, so no one bothers me. But no, I plan to be there, God willing, and you should too. Not
Okay.
just you. I'm saying more
You as a general sense.
you as a general sense. But I
And
hope
I
to.
love the idea of us letting people know about some of the really great wine events that are coming up, and we should continue because there's some big ones coming up.
Yeah, we're going into the season.
Yeah.
So, and I have for a long time planned or wanted to plan one here, and it's just never come about. But you'd have to come in for that, obviously.
If you plan one, I will be there.
It's a tough world. The wine
The
world's
last time I was in Baltimore was for the cicadas.
oh, really. Well, there are people, by the way, that specifically come to see that, which is to me, you're a sick person if you're coming to see that.
I just happened to be there then, and it was insane. It was absolutely insane.
It's really a crazy thing.
I picture Makat, the frogs of
Right.
Svardea being
Right.
like that, where you just see piles of cicadas in every street corner. It's insane.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The first time right after my oldest was born, and as my wife still reminds me, and this was, I think it was 2004, 2021. Do those years make sense? 2021 was.
2004, I think that's when I was there, 2004.
Okay, it was something like, yeah, that would make sense. And she was a baby. She was a year old, and we were coming back from lunch or something on Shabbos, and I was pushing the stroller right down the middle of the street, and one of the cicadas like flew. They're terrible flyers, and it flew like right onto my face or whatever, and I abandoned the stroller in the middle of the street and ran running. And
Oh no. I remember that Shabbos. That was the last time I was in Baltimore. That Shabbos was crazy wherever you couldn't walk outside without getting hit by a cicada.
It's there are a lot of good reasons to live in Baltimore, but that's not one of them. But it's only every 17 years, which, by the way, an incredible wonder.
Oh, yeah.
They live underground for 17 years. It's really a
Yeah.
crazy thing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, well, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always. We do have to, people drive me crazy. Like, when are you doing another one? When are you doing another one? So we really, it's usually, I'll say it's usually the rabbi's fault, not mine, because he's very busy. I got nothing to do. I'll do it every day. But this has been my fault this last,
This past few weeks I've
yeah.
tried, and you've
Yeah.
been the one that's been MIA.
Yeah. Well, I try to do them sober, and that's been a problem the last few weeks.
I can't relate.
Anyway, it's been great to see you. And as always, if you have ideas or questions or comments, we love to hear from everyone. We have some great upcoming guests planned also as part of that series of interviews. But this is always fun, just talking about the wines we're drinking. So it was great to see you again, and I look forward to our next one. But I'll let you talk us out, as you with your baritone. That's probably not a baritone, but with your really professional method of doing it. You let us in, you can lead us out.
This has been the Kosher Wine Podcast. You can reach us at kosherwinepodcast@gmail.com. That's kosherwinepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Rabbi Yisroel Bernath with Dr. Kenny Friedman. Happy drinking. How was that?
That's great.